worked with those guys for several years now as well. Are y'all aware of who they are?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. It's good for representatives and for us around this table as citizens and patriots to have organizations, specifically, conservative foundations, like the TPP Foundation. They look at those issues. Mm-hmm. And I sat through a 40-minute or so seminar on this particular issue 4 weeks ago.
Well, you're saying, so unlike our president, you can't speak from personal experience? Is that what you're saying?
I am certainly saying that. I really am. If this is being recorded, I certainly am saying that. Yes. That's right. And I like, it's sort of like the education problem. Everybody likes to get down right here on Seago, but someone's got to get up above this and look at it a little bit broader. What's really happened in education is much more bigger than just this curriculum issue, right? And I love that, and I love to go to fight for the curriculum. When you get into personal liberty, concealed handguns, open handgun, mm-hmm. All those things, right? It's personal liberty. We understand all that stuff. It would be silly for you to have open hand carry because if someone sees you, they're going to take you out, right? But on the other hand, as Texans, shouldn't we have the opportunity to do that if we want? That is a personal liberty, and we should, right? Should we have the opportunity to carry in classrooms? Absolutely, right? Mm-hmm. That is a personal liberty that we should have as Texans. When you get into putting people in jail for things of this nature,
right?
You have to step back and say, all right, this is ridiculous. This is getting. If this is a law on the books in Texas, we have to administer that law and carry out that law until it's changed, right? So, but do we have to put them in and spend $358 a day mm-hmm. to keep that person?
Not to mention their attorney and the law enforcement to arrest them. And all
it is unbelievable. So I'm real happy with the public policy guys. They have several bills that they would like for me or others to carry that allows those who have made a bad choice or has gone against a law. They're found guilty of violating a law in the state of Texas. But they don't have to go behind bars to pay the penalty for that sin, for that illegal activity. And we have to begin to get a little bit more reasonable about this because otherwise we continue to build and build and build. That's not the answer. Incarceration is not the answer to every infraction of the law. And so I'm really open to that. I really am excited about saying, all right, what realistically, and first of all, and we can deal with that as legislators. And we can talk about and debate on the legality of making it legal or not legal, keeping it illegal. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like the gambling thing. There's plenty of people that say, why don't we have gambling in Texas?
That can't be different though.
Yeah,
because of the money behind it.
That's exactly.
You legalize marijuana though, they're going to grow in their backyard.
Absolutely. It's a huge deal. When you start thinking about gambling, you have to start thinking about all the implications of that.
Yes, you do.
But even with marijuana, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, all those have, because at the end of the day, it's the family values that should drive Texas, and that's where we're failing. When I met with the superintendent of schools, with the three major school districts, I've already met with them, I've got information from them. All three of them said, Ted, we need help in educating our parents. We need parent training. And I said, hey, look, Johnny and I teach parenting classes. We'll come teach parenting classes. And they all said, great, we'd love to talk to you more about that. Because the failure of the family begins to break down. And so when you start thinking about things like that, there's other issues involved when you start saying, let's legalize marijuana. Mm-hmm. And I love that conversation. And those are the kind of things that really drive me. And being a consensus builder, I love to get people together. I've been doing that for 39 years. As a pastor, you have to talk through things. You have to build consensus. You have to bring people together of different opinions.
So I didn't quite...
Well, so you're saying you want to weigh the options.
So I'm hearing you say you'll talk about it, but I don't see here which way you're leaning.
Oh, I can't lean either way. I mean, I have to lean toward the law right now.
Right.
I mean,
changing the law.
Changing the law.
You're saying you want to weigh the options, whatever they might be.
Oh, absolutely. I would be silly, and I think anyone would be silly at this time unless they have a lot of more insight than what I have or what we have. Okay. What does that do? What does that accomplish when, other than the incarceration issue? But it's more than incarceration. What does it do to the families? What does it happen?
Well, the state expense, though.
Well, hold on. Then go ahead. You can carry it on, or you can jump in on top.
Well, now let me ask a different question. You know, everybody likes growth and progress, but as a county or as a state, are we gonna reach a point where we just got all the people we've moved? What are we gonna do about that? We got all the people we want to.
He's asking a man with 8 children that question.
Well, no, not all of them live with me. They've gone to other counties.
And water would be one issue, but it's the principle and not just water. There is a point where there's just not any more.
Yeah, and I don't know what that point is too. 2060 seems to be the.
2060?
Yeah, 2060 seems to be the big question in everybody's water issues.
I think we'll be gone.
That's right. The thing I really like to do, as y'all know, you got to know a little bit about my background as far as my doctoral work. I was trained to be a superintendent of schools. And systems analysis was a key part of my training, program analysis. As a superintendent or as an educator, as a leader of programs on the doctoral level, you have to be able to go in and look at things objectively and figure out what can we do and what can we not do, right? So every issue I look at, I'm looking at from a researcher. And so even as a sermon prep, as I'm preparing sermons, I'm going to read a bunch of different sermons and different angles and perspectives, and I'm going to come up with how I want to present that information, right? When you start thinking about county growth, who are you talking to? If you're talking to the city manager at Conroe, if you're talking to Webb, which I've been in his office and we've had all the great conversations about water and the city of Conroe and how much can we handle, and then all the municipalities around us that are drilling wells for the water side, and then you jump over to the commissioner's court and you meet with them and you start talking about transportation, and they have some kind of a number. They're saying we're 10 years behind in transportation, infrastructure. Well, I don't know that. Do y'all know that? I mean, is that factual? Well, they study it every day, so you're thinking, all right, well, certainly you have more of an informed opinion than I would have on that deal, right? There is then you move into the property value guys, whether it be around the lake or out where Dale lives, where there seems to be a lot of land, right? Well, all those guys are saying, what is the saturation point where we can only take so many people? Because there's a tax value as well that's bringing into our county. We're supposed to, as people come into our county, the tax values go up, the money is distributed, then we have enough to take care of the infrastructure needs. Well, who knows that other than God? How can we foresee that? But I do think we have to be proactive in the fact to say, we know ExxonMobil's moving here, and we've got 15,000 jobs, is what people are saying. Well, we know the infrastructure for that's going to be X. And we know that there's some brilliant minds around us that we should count upon to help us make those decisions. Is there a saturation point, with the new project coming in over here, the Six Flags replacement project over in New Caney, right? Well, that's from the east side, and it's moving toward the west side. So where do we meet? There's a lot of open land. So I say that to say, realistically, the way I look at issues was we gather the best information we can from the brightest minds and those who are in those issues, the engineers and the infrastructure side, the sociologists from the city manager side, the county leaders from the commissioner side, from the dollar side is how much money do we have to work with. And at some point you have to make a call on that.
Before you get to be Detroit.
Yeah, but there's some major principal differences between Montgomery County and Detroit, right? But the thing we have to, I always like doing is finding key people that are the brightest in their industry. It's sort of like the water issue. Talking with Jace and the guys with the San Jacinto, well, they study the issue every day. Now, many would say, oh, no, they're very biased, right? Because they're selling water. I agree. There's an economic value there. But do you think that those folks that go to work every day looking at water, shouldn't we listen and shouldn't we value at least what they bring to the table? And that's the way it is with our county. I really think we need to make sure that we are working together as a team, as a group of people, and gathering all the quality information we can and make a call.
Ken?
Since 9/11, we've had the Patriot Act passed, the Snowden released all this information about the NSA spying, NSA turned around and said, no, we're not listening to any of your conversations and all of this.
Right.
We now have, body scanners in our airports and all sorts of things. Do you believe that the NSA is listening into our conversations, email and phone calls? Do you believe that we need the level of security that we have right now? Or is this a violation of our rights?
Mhm.
And if it is, what can the state do about it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think everybody probably in this room would agree with that. Most conservative, Republican people in our county would as well. The answer, I don't know. I just have to be honest with you on that. It's sort of like the borders. When you're listening to, Greg Abbott, the major issues, and this is personal liberty. I mean, at the core issue is personal liberty is the challenge that we have. The privacy, the right to personal privacy. And
You could make it a crime, a state crime.
Yeah, and I'm
Because
willing.
they're not law enforcement.
And I am willing to go there with you, just like I think we can make it a state crime for the mayor of Houston to go against the Constitution.
Sure.
That we need to, and we had a conversation this week about that passing legislation to punish those who go directly, emphatically against the state constitution and as an elected official. Not just that we're gonna fight them legally, but that we're gonna punish them.
Right.
And that there will. And it's the same way there. If we get to a point where our personal liberties are invaded, there needs to be a compensation. It's not like stop doing it and pat on the hand. At some point, we've got to be more aggressive in punishing those who are fighting our personal rights.
Right.
And I am certainly willing to do that, especially when you have rogue mayors and rogue leaders, whatever it's mayor, whatever, in any county, any representative, and most representatives don't have that much power, of course. It's those who are in municipalities that are way beyond. They're Democrats. I mean, it's the democratic process of the overreach of Amendment 10. Larry.
Earlier you said that Seago, we need to be involved in Seago, but we need to go above Seago.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that
Whew.
in 2 minutes or less.
Okay. All right, Click. Go. All right. Seago we've got to a point in our educational philosophy in Texas and the United States where, and Rick has not done us a good job in the education area. He's done a great job business-wise, but we all know, those of us who are involved in education, that Governor Perry, that's not been a strong suit of his, all right? And what can it be? We have a system that's antiquated. We have a delivery system that has failed. We are building brick and mortar buildings to deliver a product, education, that is no longer deliverable in the buildings that we're building. We're putting students in a classroom with a talking head, and we're trying to use a 10, 20, 30 year, 40, 50, and beyond year process, a delivery system that has changed so much. Speaking with the representatives from the school districts, the superintendents, and I love this. The other day, if you were at our review, I held up this document. And said, creating a new vision for public education in Texas. This is a new proposal from over 30 representatives or superintendent of schools in the state of Texas. And it's offered for people like me as a potential representative to consider, how do we solve education issues in Texas? Now, I love that. I love that men that are in the business every day, that's what they get paid to do, they go and they're put together a document, and I read through every page of this, and I love a lot of it, because it allows us to say, let's set aside what we've been doing and think about what we could be doing. And with technology, with the opportunity, I love the opportunity where our students, we're still cookie cuttering across the entire state of Texas. West Texas schools have to look at the same as East Texas school, and they're not. But we have regulated them to the point that we have to make a common core, which we don't have in Texas, we have in the United States, but we have common regulations that every school district has to look the same. That's not the way it should be. We should give more authority to the local school districts. Why? Because we elect the school board. It's still an education of the people. The people still have a voice in the education of their community. And it's just like POA boards. You elect those guys. If you don't like what's going on in your POA, then elect different people. You can change things. In the school boards, we can. In the state of Texas, we have school boards that guide superintendents, that actually work for superintendents. Then let's let free enterprise get back involved and let the local school districts take care of their local school districts. That means that residents, they have to get involved. Parents have to get involved in the school process. Well, if they don't, well then great. The people that show up are gonna make the decisions. But they will begin to realize that we have to change the delivery system so that when a student is like a sophomore, if they want to go on a different track, and what's happening here, we're making, I don't know if you guys, how much you know about education, we're making students today look exactly the same. Once you're a sophomore, you take these classes. Once you're a junior, you take these classes. Once you're a senior, you have to take these classes. That doesn't work. Because what happens when you're a sophomore and you've about capped out on school, but then you have to go to your junior year and you're putting in the brightest people, the brightest students in your class. I'm sorry, I'm passionate. You put in the brightest people in your classroom with these guys that want to cut up and they don't want to be in the classroom. They're in the same classroom together. That is so wrong. It's a disservice to these guys that want to go on and achieve. These guys, all they want to do is go over here and learn how to do auto mechanics, or they want to go over here and learn to do something that they can graduate with and make $30 an hour working for Wiesner's. Why not let them do that? And every superintendent of schools said the same thing to me. We've got to change that. We've got to allow students, and here's what happens. They go over here, they're a sophomore, they say, look, I don't want to take physics next year because they're going to make me take physics and I'm going to create as much problem as I can in that classroom. So we get those out of this, we move them into a track where they're graduating, but they're going to start taking something that they're interested in. And they love to do that. It's a throwback era, but it still works. They graduate, and you know today that the 18-year-old is really like 15-year-old as far as maturity. It takes 24. At a 24, they're really about an 18 or 19 today. That's what our kids, because we've entitled them so much, we've enabled them to be immature because parents, another issue. Okay, so you go over here, they graduate, they go to work, they graduate from high school, they go to work making $20 an hour, $25 an hour, and then finally they realize, I don't want to do this. I think I want to get a degree. Then they can get a degree. But they're mature enough and they have enough life experience that they can go back and get the education that they want. But right now we can't do that in Texas because we're regulated out. We're spending 1.3 to 1.9 administrators for every educator, for every instructor. And that's because we've regulated our schools today.
Don't you, I see where you're going, but to me, what little I know about it, if you look at the chart of how many different entities are involved from the top on down,
Right.
it's like overlap, and this one really doesn't have any control over this one, and it's a weird looking chart.
It is amazing how much superintendent of schools would like to be back in charge of their districts.
So,
And I would love to see that happen.
so let me shift gears. So
Why? Let's keep talking about education.
when it comes to funding at the state level, there are some that say property taxes should go to zero and we should do a sales tax or some form of other. Now, so I guess the question is, let's take off we've been doing this way a million years. What's the optimal way for Texas to fund things and why? And then kind of a related part, do we have a spending problem or do we have a funding problem or do we have both? So it's a big chunk.
Three questions there, I think.
Yeah, I just threw it all out in one big pile.
That's okay. I'll see if I can hit a couple of those. Unfortunately, in Texas, we don't have any ownership. We don't have property in Texas that we own. And you know that. And that bothered me since I became a property owner. In that any day that you don't pay your property tax, it's gone, right? And that really needs to go away with. And Texas really needs to set the standard for doing away with the property tax. And I am so willing to fight for that cause. I am willing to have a common use or tax where we're certainly going to pay more than 6.25 or 8.25% on usage, but that is the most equitable way to tax in Texas. And we should be able to do that.
You're talking about sales tax or property tax? That's the most equitable way.
Sales tax.
Okay.
No, property tax is not.
But isn't that going to drive business away from Texas when when we're at 12% and everybody else is at 7%?
Texas is to the place where as our economy is the most advantageous for anybody to be in Texas, to make adjustments in that area with the money coming in. If you talk to Barry Smitherman, current railroad, realizing that in the next 2 years, Brian, we're going to have possibly we're going to cap out on our tax funds that we're going to receive from oil and gas, because the oil and gas production in Texas is doubling and tripling to the point that, like I said, we're the number 5 oil and gas producer in the United States. He projects that Texas, for the first time in 2016, possibly 18, we will have more money to deal with from extra taxes, revenues we receive from oil and gas taxes, that we're going to have to figure out what to do with it. I say, I know what to do with it. Let's roll back those taxes, and that would be the optimal time for us to be able to take back and say, all right, let's move our taxes up 1%, 1 cent, whatever, and let's begin to look at getting away from that property tax. There is an optimal season. You can't do it if you're not flush with income. We're going to be flush with income at the projected rate from the Railroad Commissioner. This is somebody that studies this every day of their life. They're the ones that are approving, oil and gas reserve and drilling exploration. He strongly believes that.
Yeah.
Oh,
He
okay.
passed. He didn't let me answer second and third, but that's okay.
Okay, good enough. I'm gonna jump back over to education. Some of the comments you made sounds like you're a strong proponent of some of the initiatives Dan Patrick made in this last legislative session. Would you carry those further, or do you think that what he's done is enough, or how would you differ with what he has put in motion?
I'm a huge Dan fan. I love Dan. I just wish he wasn't mad all the time. And I tell him that, right? But you have to be in where he is. The problem that I see with education, we're still fighting a defensive battle. We're still trying to shut down bad things that are happening in government, in our educational system. And I realize we may be doing that for a while. We may do that at 16 and 18. But at some point, we've got to go above that and say, but here's the new vision for education in Texas. And I think Greg Abbott may help us with that. I think Greg's got some really good ideas in several of these areas where we've been remiss over the last at least 6, 8, 10 years. I know in the last 3 sessions we keep throwing money. We keep saying, well, we cut money in 11 from education, and then we give it back in 13. Everybody's patting themselves on the back. We still don't have a good education project, right? So when you're thinking about what we need to do, school choice, I still love the idea of the